Welcome to Manager Roadmap to Success, a training specifically designed for the New Mexico Division of Pretrial Services. Today's course objectives include incorporating effective leadership skills, managing people, building an effective team, being a professional, training, supporting, and coaching of staff, handling complaints and low-performing employees, conducting employee investigations, and writing reports ready for HR. Being effective as a manager means that the people that work for you will actually work for you. So where should my focus be as a manager to assure that I have an effective workforce? Well, first of all, employee development. Managers should always be on the lookout for those members of staff who are developing well, but also on the lookout for those who are not. Development of staff is hugely important. Managers should encourage growth in those who show potential and offer further support and training to those who are falling behind. When it comes to employee development, you either pay now or you pay later. Either pay now by providing the training and support needed up front for your new employees, or you pay later when you're trying to juggle multiple employee issues with your HR department. Tools and equipment. It is vitally important that your staff have everything that they need to perform the basic functions of their job. This means making sure they not only have a computer, but they also have access to all the programs they may need and any other equipment that's required to get the job done. You shouldn't expect someone to be efficient. For example, if they're sweeping your porch, if all you're going to give them to do it with is a feather. So make sure your staff have everything they need. Leadership. Leadership ranks as the number one quality you should possess as a manager. You must practice to be better every day. Take advantage of tapping into any resources that will help you be a better leader. Innovation. This means thinking on your feet, and you may have to quickly come up with some unique solutions to unique problems. And sometimes this may happen more frequently than you would like. Being a manager means ultimately being responsible for the work being done by your employees. That's why it's important that they have ongoing support from you. A manager's job is to monitor performance and to review performance. But it also means that sometimes you must roll up your sleeves and take a hands-on approach to ensure that project completion and performance meet department expectations.
The 4 things you must do to become a great supervisor. Hi, my name is Craig with LeadershipMentor.com. Today's workforce is more challenging and demanding than it ever has been in the past. The need for constant encouragement and variety in the work that they're doing is more important than ever if you want to keep the most talented people in your organization. So I'm sharing the 4 most important things that I think you can do, not only keep them, but create an environment where they will thrive. Number 1, it's critical that you understand your role. Now, most of you are going to skip over this probably and think that you know what your role is as a supervisor, but you're going to think in terms of tasks. So things like reporting, monitoring work, or providing discipline. But we need to take a step back and look at this at a higher level. Your role is actually to make your people better. So that should be your focus every single day. Now, with that as your focus, it's going to be far easier and more clear to know what your priorities are and how you need to spend your day. So when we have this as our focus, we naturally start to migrate more towards things like coaching and developing our team members rather than simply monitoring and providing discipline. Number 2, and this one actually ties into our previous topic, we must be focused on the right things. Most of the training that you see out there includes time management as one of the core skills. And I agree that managing your time effectively is really important. But if you're focused on the wrong things, yes, you will get a lot done. But at the same time, at the end of the month, have you really made a positive impact in those areas that you're going to be measured on? So we use a really specific process to identify what we call your success factors. Success factors are 3 or 4 big areas that you're going to be measured on, typically like at the end of the year in your review. And it's going to be used to determine if you've made a positive impact in your position. So once you identify these major areas, then you go back and you simply align your daily tasks around those major success factors. So it makes it easy at the end of the day and at the end of the week to determine, have I done the things that I need to do to move the needle in those areas? Number 3, you must provide constant feedback. So I know many of you are going to say, I don't have time to do the feedback that I need to be doing, but I want to challenge you on that. Providing feedback is simple, it's fun, and it's incredibly helpful, not only in improving performance, but also in increasing motivation, increasing employee retention, and overall job satisfaction. When the feedback needs to be constructive, it really just takes a few minutes. If you take that person into a private setting, have a conversation where you let the team member know your observations. What is it that you observed, or what is the behavior that is the issue? Share the impact of that behavior and involve them on a positive course of action moving forward. So get them involved in that resolution or that solution. Sometimes we make feedback just too much of a process than it really needs to be. And we definitely want to utilize this praise in public, reprimand in private. Easy thing to remember, and it's really going to keep you from making some really negative impacts when it comes to trying to reprimand people. Remember that saying, and do your best to find 2 or 3 things every single day that you can provide some positive feedback and encouragement to your team members. So it's a great habit to get into. And finally, number 4, self-development. Making sure that you are continually learning and growing your role is so vital to your success, especially if you have a desire to move to the next level. And it's not about investing in a degree or spending days at a seminar. We can jump online and learn just about anything you can think of. You can also ask someone you know if they would let you buy them lunch once a month so that you can ask them some questions and learn from their experiences. There's so many simple ways to develop as a supervisor or manager, so dedicate some specific time to this effort. Even if it's just 15 minutes a week or one video, over time, you'll vastly outperform those that neglect this aspect of their role.
Let's take the 4 points mentioned in the video and hear from other managers across the nation to see how they put these points into action. First, we will hear from Carrie Conway. Carrie coordinates criminal justice programs for Stratford County in New Hampshire.
As a supervisor and a leader, one of the things that I try to do to make my people better is to demonstrate the energy every day when I come into work that I expect. I try to be positive. I try to keep the other things in my life outside of the office as much as possible. I walk around everyone in the morning, and I greet them and I welcome them to the day, and I ask them how their night was. And I treat them as they would want to be treated, as if they were family, because we have a lot of longevity in our office. And so I consider my employees my family members. I come to work every day with true intention and passion. I try to mirror that so they see that I have the best intention to produce the highest amount of results for the day. Because at the end of the day, it's about, in the pretrial world, making our communities safe. One of the things that I try to do as a manager is to make sure that our policies and procedures are up to date. We constantly are looking over our mission statements to make sure that we are meeting the goals of what we're trying to do. We are taxpayer funded, so we're constantly reminded that we are to produce the highest results. And the people in my office are true professionals. I try to mirror that every day as well, so that they feel that they can come to me when they have things going on in their life. I try to make people feel valued. I like to feel valued. I like when my manager makes me feel valued. I have an open door policy. I tell them that I have their best interest in my mind. I want them to feel valued. I want them to know that I recognize their value. I think some managers feel like that's almost implied sometimes, but I think it's important to reach out to your employees to tell them that they matter and that what they're doing is meaningful. I think that's motivating. When something's going on with an employee, I try to pull them in to find out what the root cause of is, what's going on. Why are you disengaged? What can I do as a manager to help you get re-engaged? Everybody has a different learning style and people have different values. There's so many different types of personalities in my office, like every office. And to really know your employees and to see what values they hold, so you can really talk to them and reward them in ways that is meaningful to them. I liken it to behavior modification, but also I think about our drug court program and our drug court participants. Each one of them is motivated by something differently. For someone, an extension in their curfew might mean the world to them, while reaching into a fishbowl and getting an incentive like a bus pass could be more meaningful to someone else. So for my employees, a flexible schedule, The expectation is that you work 8 hours a day, but how can we manage your mental health in that time period? Do you need to run out for a doctor's appointment? Is there a childcare concern? Let's be flexible. Go for a walk on your lunch. I tell them to always keep their mental health in mind, because what we do is traumatizing. There's a lot of vicarious trauma in our profession. So I try to talk to them about that, make them aware of that. We do debriefing. I feel like unloading that information that we've absorbed during the day at the end of the day is helpful, so we don't bring it home. We do talk about the importance of sleeping and eating and having a life outside of work. And when you're at a function on a weekend, to not talk about work, but to really focus on family and value, stuff outside of work as well.
So, what are some ways to make your team better? You should be an inspiration. Employees always seek for guidance, and they will instantly look to you as their manager as an example. Setting the right example for your employees help them to do the job more efficiently, as well as ensuring that they will feel safer knowing that their manager's there to help. You also must acknowledge failure, because as a manager, even though you're a manager, you're still prone to failing or making a wrong decision. Yet failure can be a success if it's acknowledged and fixed. Some employees might not be willing to acknowledge their mistakes due to fear. They're afraid of you. But your task is to assure them that it's okay to fail, but it's not okay to keep doing the wrong thing. You also should motivate as a leader. If an employee fails to do a job or lacks motivation, be a leader. Help them with their work or guide them. A manager tells an employee to do a task. A leader will do the task with the employees and supervise it. You also should listen. Listening skills are vital to leadership. Listening to a suggestion from a team member could change the course of a task, action, or decision, and possibly place it on the right path. So as a manager, you should encourage everyone to speak, and you should always listen. Have courage as a leader. You're going to have to make hard decisions from time to time. Calculating risk and taking them needs a courageous leader. It also sets an example for the employees to always have the courage to suggest or commit to a task, even if it's risky. Believe it or not, this will also empower you as a leader. And you also have to have compassion. Being compassionate with your employees or team members is a humanitarian act that every leader should practice. Employees are only human, and they're prone to work-related or personal issues, as well as the daily hassles that face them on the job. Be a source of comfort to your employees and make them feel safe, but be tough when it's needed. Next, we have Pemberson Ifill. He is the Deputy Commissioner for Pretrial Services in Boston. Pemberson is going to talk about making sure to stay focused on the right things.
In terms of focusing on the right things, overall, my goal is always to ensure that myself, as well as my team, understand the mission, the vision, and the values of the organization. And within that, what role do we play? And so in the Massachusetts Probation Service, we've got several different components. We've got our field services division, we've got our programs, we've got our administrative, we've got our legal elements of it. But our areas in pretrial. And so a lot of the work that we are focused on was really developed out in 2018 under the Criminal Justice Reform Act here in Massachusetts. And so a big part is really understanding how do we build a new pretrial services system for the Massachusetts Probation Service, the trial courts, as well as all the other criminal justice agencies. And central to that is the spirit and idea of collaboration. So in order for us to accomplish those things, or to answer the question more directly, is to really understand what it is that drives us, what it is as our core mission, what are the things that we're working on. And so when we go about developing a pretrial system, we need to remain conscious in the moment that we are not going to be successful unless we can bring all of the other partners and entities on board, that they're are involved and engaged at the building blocks of it. Building a new system or building a new department or entity sometimes creates tension. And so for us, we try to make sure that the more communication and the more engaged and the more collaboration we have, we try to diffuse those situations and those issues by making sure that people are part of the decision making, the planning, and the strategic process as we go forward. So I think a lot of that is really about how we engage, how we deliver, how we work, and how we stay true to the principles and the ideals that are set around pretrial.
How to focus on the right things. Have frequent discussions with supervisors. This will keep you in the know, and you're going to know what pressing matters need more urgent attention. And then prioritize that. After you know what important tasks need to be completed, prioritize those tasks to ensure that they get completed. Make to-do lists. Begin and end each day with a list. Make a to-do list at the end of the day to keep important matters at the forefront. Then begin each day reviewing that list and add any other additional tasks that may have come your way since you got into the office. Plus, marking those tasks off your list will give you a great sense of accomplishment at the end of the day. As a manager, you will need to find time to focus. And if that means closing your door and getting rid of other distractions, then that's what you have to do. Remember, ultimately, the work of your team falls solely on your shoulders. You need time to assess that work and focus on projects. Next, we will hear from Eric Schmidt. He is the interim manager and chief of Oakland County Community Corrections in Detroit. Eric will address the importance of providing feedback to employees.
What we're talking about today really is how do you provide constant and good feedback to your teams in an organization like a pretrial services agency or pretrial supervision program. And so really it comes down to some pretty fundamental basic things. You want to have obviously a mission and a vision for what your organization should and shouldn't do. But as you work through and operationalize those mission and vision statements, you need to have obviously some really, really core pieces in place with your organization. So what I'm talking about is that in order to measure and evaluate the performance of your employees and the performance of your units and departments, you need to have good data. And so you need to have a good data management system. And that can be a very complicated challenge for a smaller department or even a larger department. But the real need is there as far as driving your outcomes and your performance that you can show to your stakeholders, that you can show to your staff, so that your staff believe and understand that the mission that you believe in, that they are actually achieving it. Because a lot of times staff are involved in the day-to-day. They're sending bail recommendation reports as well as activity reports or compliance reports on their supervision caseloads. And they really aren't receiving a lot of feedback about how or what happened in court. What are the next steps? Was this person successful? And so having this data and sharing it with them regularly is incredibly important. So we were able to develop our own system internally. It took a number of years. It was obviously a large budget project, but we were able to get our stakeholders and our IT department to get the buy-in and allow us the funding to do so. Many places cannot do that, but there are good data management systems that are out there. In pretrial services, you want to be looking at what we call key performance indicators or key performance measurements. And those are things like, how much did you do? How well did your organization do it? Is anyone better off? Or is everyone or anyone better off? And so sometimes this turns into both race and gender and equality related metrics. And so when you look at a pretrial organization or a pretrial proper organization, some basic things like how much did you do? Here at Oakland County, we produce about 9,000 to 9,500 bail recommendations annually. So that's a basic metric, but it also lets that team and that unit know each year How busy were they, right? Seemed really busy, but maybe it's because they were short on employees or they had some people out or we had some turnover. Or has crime gone up? Or have we changed some of our practices? Like, is there more citation and release than there used to be? And so it's both anecdotal and data driven, where you can share those things with staff, and the feedback goes two ways, right? That's the best road you want to have. You want to provide feedback to staff and you want to get their feedback. So they might say, yes, the law enforcement officers that we meet with every day have told us they've started writing additional citation and release instead of bringing people into custody. And now we're seeing that in our reduced metrics. That can then in turn help me understand what my projected utilization should be for some of my budget requirements with my stakeholders. And so key performance measures like that, and more importantly, what are your caseloads like? What are the number of compliance reports that your supervision is writing? How many of those are for recommendations to remove conditions of release? Back to the pretrial proper, how many staff are deviating from the decision-making framework that your assessment tool is providing? Are those good deviations? Are they not so good deviations? And so these will drive conversations that you can have with staff on an individual basis, as well as in team meetings, to let them know the direction and the vision and whether some things have gone a little bit astray. And so again, we have some interesting KPIs where we talk about the percentage of low and moderate risk defendants who receive financial bail, but then they do not make release within a day. And so when you look at that also by gender and race, you can start to see whether or not there's some disparate outcome. We also look at the recommendations from our agency and whether we were recommending non-financial release and whether or not they indeed received non-financial release. So the concurrence rate from judicial officers. Because a lot of times feedback that we get with our employees and our staff and our teams are that they don't feel that they are heard, right? That their voice with the court is not quite what they'd like it to be. And sometimes that can bear out in the data, and sometimes in the data from one jurisdiction or judicial officer to another. And so depending on burnout with staff or other people, you may want to move them from one court or working with one judge to another to see if that also changes any other dynamics. But again, it's that kind of feedback and sharing that data and those metrics with your teams that can really bring great value to your organization. So it enforces expectations and it lets everyone know whether you're on the right track.
Let's discuss further why employee feedback is important. It enhances performance. Most employees aren't likely to know how they're performing unless managers give them feedback about their performance. Frequent meetings with employees are necessary in order for them to correct their performance. It clarifies expectations. When expectations are clearly communicated through employee feedback, an employee will understand exactly how their job should be performed and when certain tasks should be completed. This reduces overall employee stress and provides needed direction or redirection to employees. It also builds confidence. Constructive feedback should include positive feedback. There may be an issue, but what did the employee do well? Employees who receive positive feedback will start to build confidence about their job position and duties. Also, it improves leadership. Managers that provide feedback will feel more in control of the outcomes of the employee development. They will be more willing to coach their employees and check in with them regarding progress on tasks or projects. Successful leadership improves overall outcomes. It also promotes employee loyalty. Providing feedback to employees in an effective way helps them to feel supported in their roles and positions. Employees who feel supported by management are less likely to seek employment elsewhere. Sean LaGrega is the Deputy Director of Maine Pretrial Services. Sean is going to provide us with tips on developing as a pretrial professional.
One of the ways that I continue to develop myself as a pretrial professional is to ensure that I am constantly up to date on what's happening on the national stage as well as the local stage. One way that I do this is through setting up Google alerts. I use relevant keywords and will receive those notifications on a routine basis. I also think it's important to attend the national conference each year, which is hosted by the National Association of Pretrial Service Agencies, as well as try and attend local and regional conferences and networking events to have discussions with other pretrial professionals within my field. One other way is to continue to do case reviews with other coworkers and colleagues to work through difficult issues and to increase training capacity amongst all of our staff. It's also important to keep up to date on the most recent policies that are happening nationally. Subscribing to national publications such as APPR, National Institute of Corrections, the Safety and Justice Challenge hosted by the MacArthur Foundation are great ways to ensure that you're getting the most relevant and up-to-date news on what's happening in the field of pretrial justice and pretrial reform.
How to prioritize professional development. Focus on objectives. List the skills and knowledge you want or need to learn. Make a clear path of action complete with goals and dates in which to have each goal completed. This will help you organize your learning time more effectively, focus on your learning goals, and boost your motivation. It will also help you measure your progress in meeting those goals. Staying on top of research and new publications in the pretrial field is very important too. So as managers, you should not wait for new information to be sent to you by your superiors. You should actively seek articles or research, or at least set alerts that will make you aware of them. You also might want to consider polishing other skills as a manager. Do you need information on time management? Do you need information on courtroom etiquette? What about effective report writing? All of these skills and more are needed by good managers. Manage obstacles and distractions. Identify the obstacles that might make it difficult for you to stick to your learning schedule. Then go through each obstacle and brainstorm strategies that will help you to overcome it. For example, you might plan to commit some time to learning during your daily commute or during your lunchtime, but you immediately get distracted by phone calls, messages, and emails. And before you know it, you've forgotten all about your learning. So commit yourself to reserving your commute time or your lunch time or whatever time you decide to set aside for your learning only. And avoid opening the email, answering the calls, and looking at your to-do list. Just let those close to you know your plan, that your commute time and your lunch time is a time that you're not going to be able to be reached. But as a helpful tip, of course, we want to use your best judgment here. It would be unwise to ignore an urgent task that needs your attention. So be sure to prioritize what's most critical and return to your learning as soon as you can. Set boundaries. Often, one of the biggest distractions is other people. You may have set aside some time in your lunch break to read up on a new research, but other people may not realize this, so the work-related distractions keep on coming. It can be hard to say no when this happens, but doing so in an assertive way will help you to protect your valuable learning time. This doesn't mean you should be rude or inflexible. Instead, be friendly but firm. Explain to your colleague what you're trying to achieve and ask that they respect your time out. And another helpful tip, we want you to use your best judgment here, so it would be unwise to ignore a genuinely urgent task that needs your attention. Be sure to prioritize what's critical and return to your learning plan as soon as you can. Make learning a habit. When you make learning a habit, you'll more likely make a positive, long-lasting change and achieve the goals that you set for yourself. Do this by building learning into your daily routine. Schedule time, however little, each day for learning and stick to it. For example, you could start work early on Mondays or Wednesdays to practice a new skill or find a specific time in your day to study. Whatever you decide to do, make sure that you do it routinely. Be clear on what you're going to do, where you're going to do it, and how long you're going to devote to it. Make every minute count. Many of us assume that learning something new requires a large chunk of time, but it doesn't. Short blocks of time can be just as effective if you focus. The key is to maximize the impact of every moment you have available. Start looking at your to-do list. What could you realistically achieve in the time available? Even if you have just 10 minutes to spare, use it. Fit in a bit of extra learning. Make sure that you focus your energy effectively. For instance, minimize distractions by going somewhere quiet, turn off your phone, and log out of your messaging apps. Learn at your best. Many people opt to work on their professional development after they've completed everything else. This might be tempting, but just think about how you feel when you've checked off everything on your to-do list. When you're at the end of your day, you're usually exhausted, right? Maybe instead try to schedule your learning for times of the day when your energy levels are high and you're more likely to be in the zone. For example, you might feel a little slow right after lunch, but you might be buzzing with energy in the morning. Find the time of day that suits you best to develop more professionally. Find your own learning style. We all have our own way of learning. Some people prefer to read and take notes. Others learn by doing. When you identify your own personal learning style, you'll be able to learn more efficiently. Time spent trudging through a textbook, for example, could be time wasted if you find videos are more engaging. Experiment and find what suits you best. Collaborate with others. Learning with others can often make the experience more fun and engaging. They can help you stay motivated and provide advice and support. If you have someone checking on your progress, it can also keep you focused on your main objectives. Ask your colleagues whether they'd be interested in making more time for learning. If they are, why not form a study group, run a lunch and learn event, or simply spend some time reading and learning with them? You could even join a class or do an online course together. It can be a great opportunity to involve your staff in discussing new publications in the pretrial world or engaging them in some type of self-development. Social media sites like LinkedIn and Twitter can also help you find other professionals in your industry who are interested in learning or who can offer training and advice. You may also want to explore more specialized training activities. Some workplaces offer mentoring or shadowing programs, which enable you to structure your learning around a relationship with a knowledgeable partner. Let's talk about some of the specific duties of a manager. Managers will schedule work shifts, so be considerate when making schedules and accommodate requests best you can. You should give employees ample notice of their work schedule so they are aware and can make needed arrangements. When you run into situations in which you have a duplicate request for the same time off, accommodating the most senior employee is usually the best route to take, but you have to look at each situation individually. If a less tenured employee has a life event, such as a wedding or a funeral, you may want to see if the more senior employee could be flexible, and if not, cover for your staff yourself. Nothing says leadership better than rolling up your sleeves and doing the work when needed. But always refer to your department policies when making these type of decisions. The scenario used here are simply suggestions. Another duty of a manager is to train. And as we mentioned earlier in this training, you can either pay now or pay later when it comes to training. You either invest up front with quality training and spend the time you need in getting the new employees off the ground, or you will pay for it later in cleaning up their mistakes and trying to break bad habits or even worse, disciplinary action. So remember that your job as a manager is to ensure that you're setting up your employees to be successful. Managers should also give employees feedback on their performance. This should happen frequently. Allowing a new employee to continue to make the same mistakes without discussing and providing further training is allowing time for a bad habit to become a standard practice. And sometimes those bad habits are often very difficult to break. Managers also have to solve workplace challenges or conflicts. We talked about this earlier. It's important that as a leader, you can solve these problems quickly and effectively. Don't let the office drama brew. Involve HR in anything that may be a direct violation of policy. It is also important that managers convey department goals and targets to their team. Does your staff know your mission and your vision? Do they know what they're accomplishing by doing the work they do? Make sure they know what a valuable resource they are. Posting your mission and vision statements in work areas can help remind your staff why they do what they do. Also, communicate updates and status reports to upper management. Keep your supervisor or director in the loop about your local operations. Setting a specific time to do this can be beneficial. Always communicate. Don't delay bringing issues to their attention that need immediate action. Always keep the line of communication open. Building a dependable team is important. So here's some useful characteristics, habits, and qualities that managers need to work on in order to build a successful team. You need to be resourceful and determined. Employees expect you to know where to get things and how to get things done, and as a manager, you should. But don't let yourself become the easy button for everything. You have to know when to push back. There's a difference in addressing an uncommon problem for an employee versus answering a question that an employee could easily look up in an employee manual. Don't empower your employees to be lazy by being their easy button. Also, it's important to value everyone equally. Don't play favorites. Everyone has their strengths and weaknesses. Play on individual strengths as opposed to going to the same person each time you need something. Doing this not only causes burnout for that person, but it creates a negative culture for the other employees. Also, show respect and consideration to everyone. This makes everyone feel important instead of just a select few. Showing respect and consideration to only a few people will also create a negative work environment. It's important to give both positive feedback and constructive criticism. When dealing with work performance issues, always try to end the employee meeting with a positive. In handling conflict, we've mentioned this before, don't let office drama rule the day. Address things quickly and fairly as they come up. This sends the message that you will not tolerate the nonsense that prevents everyone from doing their jobs. There's no I in team. You are part of the team too as a manager, and staff should never hear you use the terms my staff, my program, or my judge. You should approach everything as ours or we. It takes teamwork to make the dream work. Make sure you give kudos often for the good work your employees do. Additional skills to develop as a manager would include communication skills. This is probably one of the most important skills to possess as a manager. You should be able to clearly communicate processes, expectations, and goals to your team so they can do their jobs effectively. If you do this, it can reflect positively on your performance too. Keeping your employees constantly informed about the team's progress, potential problems, or goals will make each team member feel engaged and valued. As a manager, you're going to be the communicator for your team with other departments and higher management. That's part of your job as a manager. Good communication skills will also help you when you must resolve both professional and interpersonal conflicts within the workplace. Listening is also a part of good communication. Communication and listening are important in resolving issues and incorporating employee feedback into your workplace. If a conflict arises, you will need to use your communication and listening skills to help resolve the issue and to keep your workplace atmosphere healthy and productive. Approachability and empathy. Managers should work closely with their teams and be easily accessible when questions, conflicts, or issues arise. As a manager, you will need to listen to your employees when they come to you with workplace complaints or suggestions. Focus on understanding your employees. Understand their emotions as well as understanding your own. Support employees and make an effort to be accommodating when they're faced with professional or personal challenges. You can earn their respect and trust in the process. Work-life balance is important to every employee. If you can be understanding of this while leading your team, you will have increased your department's morale and earn your team's loyalty. Management skills. Managers are responsible for the productivity of their team. This includes managing employee schedules, making sure everyone meets deadlines, and assigning tasks to the appropriate team members. Managers must be able to keep their team functioning smoothly and efficiently. Being able to delegate tasks to the appropriate employees is one of the top management skills you will need to be a good manager. You will need to recognize each of your employees' strengths and weaknesses and make sure you utilize them as effectively as possible. Identify the person on your team who can best handle a task and then trust them rather than micromanaging them to get the job done. Have confidence in your employees and their talents and give them enough room to solve problems on their own. Only step in for guidance if you're needed. When you make delegating duties a priority, you will free up more of your own time to devote to your duties as a manager. Adaptability. Change is woven into the fabric of pretrial services. It can range from a change in practice due to research to a change to the case management system. Whatever it is, a good manager will roll with those changes, be positive in making the change, and be the shining example of adapting to change. Confidence and positivity. Your attitude and demeanor are contagious and can greatly influence the atmosphere in your workplace. Try to be positive and optimistic every day. Build confidence in your team by showing confidence in yourself and in them. Be passionate in your mission and vision and be the inspiration your team needs to share that passion. Managers lead by example, and if you can show genuine enthusiasm and motivation at work, your attitude will definitely be contagious. Create an atmosphere in which your employees enjoy coming to work. This can help you foster a more productive workforce. Giving positive feedback to team members for jobs well done and celebrating reaching goals and milestones will contribute to your team's morale and, in turn, their productivity. Transparency. Sensitive employee information or sensitive information about the department will require you to maintain a level of privacy as a manager, but try to operate as transparently as possible. Being a great manager means being honest and direct with your employees. When appropriate, share with your staff any successes, failures, opportunities, or concerns. Be willing to accept responsibilities for failures or poor choices. This will definitely earn your team's respect for you as a leader. Teamwork. Treat your employees more like equal team members than subordinates. Rather than issuing orders and expecting staff to stay on task, try including them in decision-making and strategic planning. Treat them as partners and encourage collaboration. A team-oriented approach makes for a more productive and positive workplace. Willingness to learn. Just because you're a team leader does not mean you know everything there is to know about your job, your career, or your department. The best manager is always trying to enhance his or her skills and knowledge. You can learn not only from the people and employees around you, but also from self-education opportunities provided through your workplace or online. Share what you learn with your team members and encourage them to pursue their continued professional development too. Want to be effective as a manager? Here's how. Get feedback. Ask other managers in your team for input and advice. Use this feedback to better handle a difficult situation or to improve your own skills and knowledge. Lead effective team meetings. To get the most participation, productivity, and results out of meetings, seek advice from a mentor or take a course on meeting management. An effective meeting environment is one your employees will want to attend and contribute to. Use team meetings as an opportunity to provide additional or supportive training, as well as having open discussions about day-to-day operations, and maybe brainstorm how to make things better or more efficient. Find a trusted confidant. You're going to face challenges in your work life just like anyone else. As a manager, it's also not appropriate to rant to your own staff. So instead of gossiping with another employee, find an unbiased and trustworthy friend, or a colleague, or a family member, or maybe someone from human resources. Those are the types of people to vent to about your work, not other employees. Develop your interpersonal skills. Just as a good manager always seeks out more training, experience, and knowledge, so too should you continue to improve your employee interactions. Always think about how you can develop your people skills. Practice by engaging and socializing with people in various scenarios or taking a management training course. Get used to change. Be cognizant of how you handle change, as you will experience a lot of it in your role as a manager. As a leader, other employees will take their attitude and action cues from you. Be ready to adapt to new processes or projects and to pass that adaptability on to your employees. Delegate responsibilities. It's impossible for you to do everything. We talked about this earlier in our training. You have to delegate. It's your responsibility as a manager to make sure tasks are done properly and on time. Learn to let go and assign tasks to your employees and trust their abilities. Provide your employees with clear instructions, monitor their progress, and provide constructive feedback. How to get started as a manager. First of all, get to know your staff. Set up meetings with your employees, whether it be individually or as a staff meeting. It's an excellent time to establish expectations, both those you have for the employees and those the employees have of you. Also, get to know the stakeholders. Set up meetings with all the judges, jailers, court officials, and public defenders in your area. This not only provides you with introductions, but opens the door for them to share issues and concerns they may have. It is important for stakeholders to feel acknowledged and heard, and this level of communication and interaction must be maintained. It's very important. It also allows you to discuss pretrial services and the role in the system that you have. Surprisingly, many people do not understand how pretrial services works. Also, be familiar with your personnel and your departmental policies. You can find direction on how to handle many situations there. Just make sure you review and make yourself familiar with them. Be visible. It's difficult to earn respect from employees and stakeholders when they rarely see or interact with you. Don't stay cooped up in your office. Walk around and talk to employees, or if you have multiple jurisdictions that you manage, make sure you find time to travel within those jurisdictions. It's important that both employees and stakeholders identify you as that go-to person if they have problems. And ask questions. If you don't know the answer, or if you don't know how to handle a situation, don't wing it. Talk to your supervisor. Most people adjust the way they present themselves to match the situation they find themselves in, whether it's personal or professional. For example, you may act differently with your boss than you do with your brother, sister, or friend. Knowing how to develop an appropriate professional attitude can help you maximize your professional connections and make excellent impressions at work. A professional attitude is the manner in which you conduct yourself in a professional setting. In this context, the term attitude often describes both how you appear and how you act. A professional attitude is often more formal than a personal attitude in terms of appearance, conduct, and interaction. While personal attitudes come relatively naturally to most people, professional attitudes are often specifically developed and tweaked to best fit the environment, workplace, or group of people you're interacting with. So make it a priority to continually work on developing your professional attitude. So let's look at a few ways to develop a professional attitude. One of the first things you can do to improve your professional attitude is to invest in a professional wardrobe. Working in professional settings such as justice center offices and courtrooms require professional dress. Use formal speech. Speaking more formally than you would with friends and relatives is one of the best ways to establish your professional attitude. You can increase the professionalism of your speech by using proper grammar, avoiding slang and curse words, speaking about work-related subjects rather than personal topics, and using niceties like please and thank you regularly with both colleagues and the people we see in jails. Focus on work. When at work, focus on work. Dedicate yourself to your job duties and helping others on your team or in your department meet their objectives. Keep your work area clean and tidy and ensure you meet your deadlines. Showing that your job is your top priority while at work is a fantastic way to develop your professional attitude and also to build your professional reputation. Be prepared. Come to work or other professional engagements prepared. Depending on your role or the expectations of the event, this probably means carrying a notebook and pen at minimum, or your laptop or tablet if you need more resources. With a small set of tools, you can take notes, share ideas, and produce examples when needed. Take initiative. Taking initiative in the workplace can help establish your professional attitude. Ask your supervisors for ways you can help your colleagues, or ask for additional tasks if you finish your work early. Seek out professional development opportunities and ask your supervisors for additional training. Ask for feedback. Seek feedback from your supervisors and your colleagues on your work performance and professional conduct. Accept the feedback and use it to improve your productivity and skills, and to improve your professional demeanor in work-related settings. Demonstrate gratitude. Show through your attitude and actions that you're happy to have your job and appreciate your coworkers. Gratitude is a great tool for establishing a positive professional attitude. It can be as simple as sending an email to staff or to one individual staff person who has gone that extra mile. What type of traits and characteristics will enhance your performance? Honesty. Part of maintaining a professional attitude is remaining transparent and honest when you can. Of course, keeping in mind that as a manager, there are instances such as disciplinary actions that require your discretion. Respect. Thoughtful professionals respect everyone on their team and respect the people they serve. Communication. Maintaining open and clear communication is a vital component of a professional attitude. Integrity. Professional attitude is often associated with integrity by doing the right thing whenever possible. Care. Having a professional attitude means caring about your job, your department, and your coworkers. Accountability. Those with a professional attitude hold themselves accountable for their errors or their missteps. Commitment. A professional attitude means a commitment to your job and your career development. To improve your professional attitude, know your workplace. When it comes to the culture of your department, you should know it better than anyone. Keep your finger on the pulse of your department. Act like a leader. Employees appreciate and respect someone that leads with a calm, thoughtful, work-focused attitude. If you would like to be considered for promotion, this would allow your supervisor to see that you possess the qualities needed to do the job. Manage any conflicts. I keep reiterating this point because it's important. Conflict is a normal part of any professional relationship. How you handle that conflict, however, can have a major impact how you're perceived professionally and also your ability to complete your tasks. Learn how to effectively and respectfully manage conflict. Be reliable. Professionals are reliable. Show that you're a reliable employee by arriving to work a little early every day. Request time off in advance and meet your deadlines regularly. Consider your responses. Many people communicate with their colleagues in a number of ways, including email, text messaging, and phone calls. While you should strive to respond within 24 hours, take the time to carefully consider and word your response before sending it off. This will ensure your message is clear, tactful, and free from grammatical errors. This also shows that you're a professional and that you've given thought to your response as opposed to sending a one-line response. You also need to meet your bodily needs. Eat regularly and get up from your desk to stretch your legs. When you take care of your body, you can stay focused on your work and maintain a positive attitude. Sometimes we're tempted to work through lunch, but try not to make this a habit for both your mental and physical health. It is important to show appreciation to your staff, so acknowledge accomplishments right away. That is the easiest way to recognize your employees for good work. To make a maximum impact, make an in-person visit to the employee. Also, write thank you notes. When you can't show your appreciation right away, or when the accomplishment is big or deserves more than a quick congratulations, put your gratitude in writing. Take the time to write a personal note or an email that conveys your genuine appreciation, including a recognition of their hard work and an acknowledgement of their professional growth. While notes and in-person thank yous are appreciated, It is also important to recognize your team in public. You can do this during staff meetings or include an acknowledgement in your department's newsletter if you have one. And most certainly acknowledge them in emails that go to people outside your department. Make your stakeholders aware of what an awesome team you have so they too can give your team some recognition. Celebrate traditions. Do things regularly that give employees something to look forward to. It can be a monthly team building event or an off-site networking event. This will strengthen your team and reinforce a positive workplace. Ignore small mistakes. Sometimes the best way to show appreciation is to give your employees leeway when they need it. If they make small mistakes, such as missing a project deadline by a few hours or neglecting a minor task, allow them to try again rather than reprimanding them. This sends the message that you appreciate their hard work and that you trust them to do their best. Offer extra time off. Many employees appreciate intangible rewards like additional time off. Buy lunch for your team. When you want to improve team morale and show appreciation to your employees at the same time, buy everyone breakfast, lunch, or coffee, or you could even provide snacks at in-person meetings. Create a reward system. A suggestion is to assign a certain number of points to various tasks that will add up for employees to redeem for extra days off or even gift cards. Let's drill down a little deeper into your job, and let's look at some helpful tips for you as a manager. Staff must understand that data drives important decisions. It not only allows directors and legislators the ability to gauge performance for potential funding, but it also allows staff to see what kind of job they're doing. Are people being released as a result of their work? Are their supervision outcomes good? Do people do well on supervision or not? Understandably so, staff can feel at times that all they do is data entry. That's why it's increasingly important that they understand all the whys about their work and how taking shortcuts, even though it seems like the right thing to do in the moment, is not always the best thing to do. Your pretrial manager, Kelly Bradford, said it best. Shortcuts are great until they're not. And how true this is. Taking shortcuts usually ends in massive data cleanup efforts. Staff must understand their work is important. Dealing with employee performance. Set clear expectations. Each employee should know what's expected of them each day, including any special assignments. Everyone should know a measurable product is expected to be completed at the end of each day. Measure productivity. Make it a priority to review case management and any available user reports to establish a clear picture of what an employee is doing during their shift. Schedule coaching sessions. Don't let work mistakes pile up without having a meeting with employees. Zoom or Teams allows you to easily meet and discuss work product with employees. Remember, we talked about pay now or pay later. If you don't address mistakes as they happen, then bad habits can form, and those are very difficult to break. Engage your team regularly. Hold regularly scheduled staff meetings to build rapport between you and the employees and to provide additional training. Reiterate the message and the mission. It is important that the emphasis on the mission is a focus. Make sure employees are aligned with the department's mission and goals. You don't need employees that say one thing but do another. In other words, you don't need chameleons. A chameleon is someone that will tell you what you want to hear and lead you to believe they have buy-in to the mission, but will adapt to blend into their local office culture. So if the community, judiciary, or even another coworker has a keep everyone in jail mentality, they adapt to that in the moment. Keep your fingers on the pulse of your program to know what's going on. This is why stakeholder engagement and frequent meetings with employees is a must, just to help reiterate that message. Develop a level of communication. Work with employees to ensure that nothing or no one slips through the cracks and that all statutory requirements have been met. And lastly, use your phone or Zoom. Email can be very overused. Some situations are handled best by phone or by Zoom. So connect with your employees in a different way than simply by email. Employee action logs can be a good tool for your manager toolbox. Action logs allow you to document discussions with employees so that if you're having the same discussion about the same performance issue, you have a record of those discussions. It is also a way to document performance, good and bad. You don't want an entire log of just bad things about an employee. Everyone has good qualities and things they're good at, so those things should be documented here too. It's also going to provide you a record of initial training and any subsequent training or support training given to the employee. This does not allow the employee to hide behind the excuse of, I was never trained on that, because you have a documented record that reflects otherwise. This is an example of what an action log could cover. Action logs can provide documentation of conversations, coaching, training, and can provide a history of the employee's performance and attendance. Action logs can be used to document contact with the employee and, to some extent, observations of that employee. But be careful in documenting observations. As you can see in our example, Jane volunteered to work during Thanksgiving. The supervisor wanted to make note of that. That was a good thing that Jane did, and the supervisor wanted to document it. However, if Jane was having a tardiness issue, documenting an observation of Jane coming in late for work would not be appropriate because you would need to talk to Jane about why she was late for work. To document Jane being tardy, you would not only need to document the time she was scheduled to arrive, but the time she actually came to work. You would also need to record her response when you asked why she was late, and then record any response that you gave that might include direction given to Jane or any flexibility you allowed Jane based on her response. Documenting work incidents or performance without talking to Jane does not provide what is needed if you eventually have to go to HR because Jane's tardiness has become a persistent issue. Another tool for your manager's toolbox is to maintain a training log. Training is all about perception. You may think you are the best trainer, but if the employee does not correctly perceive that which you are training, all is for naught. You may say, prep this potato for cooking, but if you do not take the time to fully explain the process of prepping the potato for cooking, you may not have the desired outcome. Prep for boiling a potato would be different than prepping a potato for frying or even baking. Plus, do they even know how to clean a potato? Be sure that nothing is taken for granted. Train as if the person knows nothing. Avoid the use of acronyms and jargon, and allow the employee to repeat back to you what they learned. You will most likely have much better outcomes if you do this. These training logs can also assist in guiding your training with employees, and they can also help the employee keep track of all the things they're responsible for knowing. It will make it easier for them to ask questions too. These logs can also serve as a documentation of the employee's training. What can you do if you have an employee who is a low performer? First, determine if the low performance is the result of an employee's failure to grasp procedures, or is it a delivery of training issue? If it is a failure to grasp procedures, here are some important questions to ask. How long has the person been employed? Is the employee off probation? Is the employee's performance less than those employees hired at the same time? Review training logs and action logs and discuss with your supervisor, if necessary, to determine the appropriate course of action. If the employee is still on probation, review your policies to see the options available to you. If you think the employee will improve with additional training, you may consider a PIP, or a performance improvement plan, to do a detailed documentation of an issue as well as map out a training plan to help make the employee successful. A date for review can be added after you and the employee discuss and determine how much training and how long the training will last in the PIP. 30 to 90 days is the most common time frames. If you think the employee knows procedures but is simply making mistakes, you can coach the employee and document it in the action log. This documentation is not as detailed as a PIP, but will detail the history and frequency of the issue. If it is a delivery of training issue, meaning that other employees undergoing the same type of training are making the same mistakes, you will need to look at the method of training or the person conducting the training. Changes may be in order, or PIPs or coaching for the trainer may be necessary. Always remember that your job is to make sure the employee is successful and that the employee has the tools and training necessary in order to be successful. This is an example of a PIP. These can be used to ensure progress is being made by the employee with a definitive deadline given. Sometimes coaching and PIPs do not work to improve employee performance. Repeated instances of the same performance issues may need further attention. In these cases, a progressive course of discipline may need to be initiated. Discuss the occurrences with your supervisor and involve HR if necessary. Sometimes there can be problems with employees that are not related to their work performance. These can come in the form of judicial complaints that could include an employee's lack of preparedness, to tardiness, or it could even be related to a professional or ethical issue. Complaints from the public and complaints from people involved with pretrial release could range from an employee being rude or an employee's demeanor on a call to lack of attention on the part of a pretrial officer, leading someone to believe they were not treated fairly. When these complaints are made, your supervisor may direct you to conduct an investigation. The investigation needs to be conducted as soon as possible after the alleged incident, and the report written soon thereafter. Even though you may have taken extensive notes, it's best to write reports while information is still fresh with you. The report will need to be submitted to your supervisor immediately. HR is typically involved in these types of investigations, so depending on the nature of the complaint, HR may totally handle the investigation without you being involved. So let's talk about how to begin an investigation related to a complaint. Review the complaint thoroughly and compile a list of questions so the appropriate people can answer those questions as you conduct your investigation. As part of your review, you will need to determine all the people you need to interview. Make a list of names and schedule meetings. After your meetings, you may have more questions. Make another list of questions before meeting with the employee involved. You will then need to meet with the employee and explain the complaint. Give them an opportunity to explain their side of the incident. Ask questions from your list and record the employee's responses. Be sure to maintain eye contact as much as possible, just as you would during any interview. Sometimes investigations and reports are needed for work-related issues. In these cases, documentation is key. If you are using action logs or training logs, refer to those when drafting your report, along with any other supporting documentation. This could include screenshots from your case management system. Also, a meeting is necessary to discuss with the employee and to determine why this continues to be an issue. If you've had regular meetings with the employee to discuss performance, the employee should not be surprised at the potential for disciplinary action. Now it's time to write the report. The best rule of thumb is to follow the 4 W's and the H: who, what, when, where, how. Who is the employee, and identify the person by name and title. What is the problem? Detail the problem and include relevant information such as training provided if that's appropriate. You will also want to include any interviews with other people during your investigation in this section. When did this happen? Document the date and the time. Where did this happen? Document the county, city, or location, or what office. How did this happen? Here is where your conversation with the employee or other involved parties should be documented. Keep in mind that any report you write could be submitted to HR, so make sure the report contains all the important elements and is ready to be sent to HR if necessary. You should also be prepared to submit screenshots from case management system if necessary to support low performance. The report should be well written, using good grammar and complete sentences. Avoid the use of he or she to avoid confusion about the person you're writing about. For example, don't name the person in the first paragraph and refer to them as he or she without using their name again. This is confusing to the reader, especially if other parties are involved. Sometimes it gets hard to determine which he or she the report is referring to. The structure you see in this sample is a good sample structure of how the report should be written. Let's face it, being a manager can be super tough, but you have a great team in New Mexico to provide you with guidance and instruction. In New Mexico, you're setting an example for our nation and for our world. Best wishes to you as you embark on your journey as a manager. Remember, stand out in the crowd. Be the change that makes change happen. Good luck.